Hello and welcome to our program. Inter-Korean cooperation efforts are picking up speed in the military, health, and civil sectors as a follow-up to the Panmunjeom and Pyeongyang declarations. Here's what we have for you today.
On this week's A Road to Peace, we discuss inter-Korean cooperation projects currently underway across different areas. We also take a look at North Korean news coverage on sports. Finally, we meet young South and North Korean players facing off each other at an international football tournament in Gangwon-do Province.
For today's discussion, we're joined by Dr. Myong-hyun, Research Fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Now, we saw some good progress being made on implementing the Panmunjeom and Pyeongyang declarations. And for starters, the two Koreas agreed to remove 11 guard posts from each side in the heavily fortified Demilitarized Zone. What do you make of this achievement?
Well, this is definitely an increase in the confidence and trust between the two Koreas, especially in the military domain. So I would like to applaud the progress being made on the inter-Korean front. There's also concern on some quarters in South Korea, also in the United States, that this is being done without a deep consultation with the U.S. government. So I think there's a little bit of friction, so to speak, and also a little bit of insufficient communication between the two allies when it comes to advancing these confidence-building measures between the two Koreas. Except for that, I think this is a very positive development. But then I think there are some points that the South Korean government should address in the near future.
Right, and that issue is actually popping up in various areas of the inter-Korean cooperations. But moving on October 22nd, the two Koreas held forestry talks, and after that they also held talks on health cooperation on November 7th. And one of the main agendas were jointly combating infectious diseases. But I want to ask you, how dire is the health situation in North Korea, and do the people really need immediate aid at this point?
Well, there are two aspects to humanitarian assistance in North Korea. One is, as you mentioned, addressing the health crisis in North Korea. There's also the food shortages, which is endemic in North Korea. So when it comes to the emergency situation, I would say the food shortage is more of an immediate concern. I think there's a shortfall of food assistance in North Korea since last year. With the cycle of provocation by North Korea, international donors essentially stopped providing aid to North Korea. So there's an ongoing shortage of food in North Korea. So that's something that should be addressed. But on the other hand, there's no immediate health crisis in North Korea, so to speak. North Korea had made actually significant progress in addressing some of the health issues, especially in the infectious kind in the country. North Korea has been very good at conducting immunization drive for the children, especially. I think our most recent one was earlier this year, when North Korea was commended by World Health Organization for having conducted an immunization drive, inoculating up to 6 million children in a span of a week. So in that sense, North Korea is actually doing a good job in their health. But on the other hand, there are more endemic issues such as tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is endemic in North Korea and exacerbated by the fact that the North Korean health system has broken down in the 90s and was rebuilt very slowly. So that has exacerbated the endemic tuberculosis problem. So the strain of tuberculosis in North Korea is called multiple drug resistance tuberculosis, which is really hard to actually address. And then, therefore, I think there's a concerted effort on the part of the international community in conjunction with South Korea to assist North Korea in addressing this issue. So in that sense, I think it's more of a mixed bag when it comes to the humanitarian healthcare situation in North Korea, that they need aid, but I think North Korea is doing a good job. At the same time, there's no emergency, but that doesn't mean that they don't have important issues.
So I guess we just need the inter-Korean relations to improve for those serious matters that are at hand right now. But does health cooperation actually fall under the humanitarian assistance, or is there some kind of limitations caused by the sanctions placed against North Korea?
So there's this understanding that when it comes to humanitarian assistance, there are no restrictions whatsoever. This is actually half true. So one thing that we have to take into account is that there are two types of sanctions on North Korea. One is the sanctions by the United Nations, and then United Nations sanctions actually try to be less restrictive when it comes to supplying humanitarian assistance to North Korea. But what really counts in this instance is actually the export control regime by the United States. And much of the cutting-edge medical equipment and medicine contains U.S. origin technology and components, which puts them under the domain of the U.S. export control laws. So if we want to assist North Korea with medicine, actually, there's no restriction. There are no general restrictions, actually. There are some exceptions, such as supplying very specific toxins and then very specific medical elements, because there's also concern that North Korea could use them for development of chemical and biological weapons. But other than that, there are no restrictions on the medicine supply to North Korea. But on the other hand, there's a very serious constraint on supplying North Korea with medical devices, such as X-ray machines or digital technology and the CT scan and so forth. That's something that the South Korean government is actually thinking deeply about, how to assist North Korea with medical devices. But then, and bottom line is, without the U.S. cooperation, it will be very difficult for South Korea to unilaterally supply North Korea with medical devices.
So I guess there are some specific details on health cooperation that need addressing because of the sanctions. But the two Koreas also had a joint inspection on the use of the Hangang estuary. And this is the first time, actually, in 65 years since the 1953 Armistice Agreement. How significant is this kind of achievement?
Well, this is a very important advance, also now a possible outcome from the ongoing confidence-building measures between the two countries. And Hangang estuary is a very important outlet for, and also a communication channel. Used to be a major transportation hub for South Korea. We know that the Hangang river bisects Seoul into two and connects Seoul with the Yellow Sea on the west side. And because of the ongoing confrontation with North Korea, the use of the Hangang estuary had been blocked. So removing the tension in that part of the Hangang estuary would actually increase the development of the areas that, on the South Korean side, that's connected with the Hangang estuary. So it's very positive. But on the other hand, also there's some risk that if the tension comes back to the Korean Peninsula, then the South Korea could actually be left with like a low level of defense against potential North Korean incursions. So that's a concern that I think the South Korean government and the United States should address.
Well, now that you mention it, it looks like a lot of inter-Korean projects actually undermine and lower South Korea's defense against North Korea. What do you think of this area?
Well, this is the trade-off between lowering the tension and increasing the dialogue. But then, on the other hand, we have to assume more risk in case tension comes back. So it's a natural trade-off that the South Korean government is making. I mean, in order to make progress in peace, we have to somehow modify our defense posture. Let me remind you about what the Chief of Staff of the U.S. military force, General Dunford, said in a congressional hearing in Washington. He mentioned that the U.S. forces posture in Korea will be modified if there's a progress being made, and also as well as denuclearization. So this is actually a logical logical step that both sides will have to take in order to lower the tension. So, if you want to have peace, you have to have lower defense posture. That's a given. So we have to assume that risk if you want to have peace in the Korean Peninsula.
I see. Now, we already talked about various projects going on between the two Koreas, but there's actually more. So South Korean members of the Korean Council for Reconciliation and Cooperation actually visited Mount Kumgang and met their North Korean counterparts there. But the Hyundai group actually announced that it will hold a ceremony commemorating the 20th anniversary of the tours at the Mount Kumgang resort. Are they laying the groundwork for resuming tours over there?
I think there's definitely an expectation and hope on the part of both Koreas to resume the Mount Kumgang tourism project. It was hailed as a major milestone in the inter-Korean economic cooperation, also as a people-to-people exchanges. But on the other hand, we know that Mount Kumgang tourism project has some potential for violating sanctions against North Korea, especially when it comes to sending cash to the North Korean regime. So that's the reason why it's been blocked in the past. It's still being blocked present. So I think that's something that the two Koreas are very conscious of. So right now, the ceremony is an indication that it's actually a manifestation of the willingness and intention on the both Koreas that they are ready to resume the tourism, and inter-Korean tourism, so to speak. But at the same time, in terms of sanctions, instead of the political environment, the tourism project is not ready to resume.
I understand, but the first Kim-Trump summit was more focused on the inventory of North Korea's nuclear capabilities, while the U.S. would be providing a declaration to the end of the Korean War. But the possible summit is actually more focused on the verification measures on North Korea's denuclearization, while the U.S. would be providing some easing of sanctions. Are these growing issues what's kind of hindering the progress made on the nuclear negotiations?
Yeah, possibly. But then I think the bottom line on both sides, from the get-go, I mean, notwithstanding the issue of declaration to formally end the war, was about relaxation of sanctions in exchange for denuclearization. So, for instance, more concretely, providing inventory of North Korea's nuclear materials. So I think that was the bottom line for both sides to begin with. So right now, I think that what happened in the previous number of months, I think it was all smokescreen. Now they are entering the real round of serious negotiations. So in that sense, I think the possibility of a major breakthrough is up, but also the downside of a negotiation falling apart. So in a way, we are entering a risky stage in negotiations. But again, the upside is also very actually significant.
It's going to be a very severe tug of war between the two sides now, I guess.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But President Moon Jae-in actually said that he is preparing Kim Jong-un's visit to Seoul under the assumption that it will happen within this year. But is this Seoul visit actually depending on the second Kim-Trump summit too?
Well, that's really up to the two Koreas. I mean, also there's a strategic value on both sides, both Koreas, to use the occasion of Kim Jong-un's visit to Seoul as a way to make a breakthrough in the impasse that's currently in place between the U.S. and the North Korea. So if there's no more significant progress being made on the denuclearization front, it's possible for Kim Jong-un to think about visiting Seoul as a dramatic gesture to push forward with the momentum of diplomatic momentum that he's enjoying right now. So it's possible for him to come to Seoul within this year just because there's an impasse on the denuclearization front. On the other hand, it's also possible, like everything involving North Korea, there's always two sides to the coin. Right. It's also possible for Kim Jong-un to cancel his promise to visit Seoul before the end of this year, to show this displeasure at the lack of progress being made on the sanctions front as well as the denuclearization front. So we don't know what's going to happen, but I think President Moon is putting a lot of hope on the former scenario rather than the latter scenario.
And because we only have less than 2 months left until the new year comes, I think we'll be keeping close tabs on that Seoul visit. But we're going to move on to a lighter note now. We'll now watch clips from North Korea's KCTV to better understand the country's culture and society. This week's selected clips feature how North Korea encourages sports activities at work and at school. Let's take a look.
체육에 대한 사회적 관심과 열기가 날로 높아가는 속에 시안의 많은 단위들에서 여러 가지 대중체육 활동을 활발히 벌이며 몸과 마음을 튼튼히 단련해 나가고 있습니다. 대외건설 지도국에서는 롱구장과 정구장을 비롯한 체육시설들을 그전히 갖추어 놓고 일꾼들부터가 앞장서서 누구나 한 가지 이상의 체육기술을 소유해 나가고 있습니다. 특히 요가 시간을 이용해서 부서별 롱구, 탁구, 정구를 비롯한 여러 종목의 경기를 활발히 진행하면서 이곳 종업원들은 집단의 조직력과 단결력을 더욱 강화하고 집단 안에 혁명적 낭만과 열정이 차넘치도록 하고 있습니다. 중앙정보통신국 5분국의 일꾼들과 종업원들도 대중체육 활동을 활발히 벌여 노동과 국방에 튼튼히 준비해가고 있습니다.
오늘 대중체육 활동 계획에 따라서 분구에서는 롱구 경기를 진행하게 됩니다. 체육 요리가 높아감에 따라 우리 분구에서는 롱구를 장려하고 배련풍이 그 어느 때보다 더 세차게 불어서 이제는 가정부인들까지도 웬만한 롱구 기초기술 동작들은 다 하고 있습니다. 길다 나니까 롱구 경기도 시작부터 매우 치열하게 벌어지고 있습니다. 오늘 작업반별 대항 경기를 통해서 집단의 전속도 가시되고 또 평시에 연마한 롱구 기술도 이제 남김없이 이제 발휘되라고 이제 생각합니다.
열띤 응원 속에 벌어진 작업반별 여자롱구 대항 경기는 집단 안에 혁명적 기백과 낭만을 더해주고 정호원들의 체육 요리를 더욱 북돋아 주었습니다. 대동강구역 릉나거급중학교에서 배구 서조 운영에 힘을 넣어 성과를 거두고 있습니다. 이곳 배구 서조에서는 서조원들의 체질에 맞게 단계별 훈련 목표를 과학적으로 세운 데 맞게 배구 기초 훈련을 강화하면서 개별 훈련 지도를 통해서 누구나 한 가지 이상의 특기 기술을 소유하도록 하고 있습니다. 또한 서조원들 사이에 대항 경기를 자주 진행해서 경기 과정에 나타날 수 있는 여러 가지 정황에 대처한 기술과 전술적 문제들을 실전의 분위기 속에서 터득해 나가도록 하고 있습니다.
Dr. Go, it really looks like basketball and volleyball have become part of North Koreans' everyday life. But what does sports exactly mean for a socialist country like North Korea?
Well, there's value in sports in every society, but there's an ideological component in promoting sports in the socialist state like North Korea. There's a tendency in socialist states to emphasize the collective over the individual, and as you have seen in the clip, all the sports that they have shown in North Korean TV involves group sports, such as basketball, volleyball, and so forth. Right. So this is an indication that North Korean state is trying to emphasize that like the individual should sacrifice for the collective. And so I think that's along the same vein that Kim Jong-un is promoting sports under his the reign. And also we have to remember that Kim Jong-un is a huge basketball fan.
Right, he's very famous for that.
Exactly. So I think there's a personal interest there too.
And they say that North Korea has been putting more focus on sports since Kim Jong-un took power. Is it because he's such a big basketball fan, like you said?
Of course, there's that point, but also there's this idea, I think, of projecting an image of North Korea as a normal country. And also it facilitates dialogue with other countries. So the idea of normalizing North Korea in the view of the international community, I think has been a very important goal of current diplomatic drive by the North Korean regime. So I think it's not surprising for North Korea to promote sports as a way to gain like a foothold in the consciousness of the people in the world that North Korea, again, is a normal country.
And I think thanks to Kim Jong-un's interest in sports, it actually led to somehow a peace move on the Korean Peninsula because he's the one who actually decided to put North Korea, make it compete in the Winter Olympics in Pyeongyang, right? So I think all in all, there are good effects from that. And under Kim's watch, North Korea has stepped up its efforts to develop elite sports and train its athletes overseas. North Korea's youth football teams have also visited Chuncheon in Gangwon-do province for an international football tournament. Here's more on the story.
Future football stars from the two Koreas faced off at an international youth football tournament held in Gangwon-do province. We take a look at the 10 days of friendship and competition that brought the athletes together. North Korean youth football teams crossed the border on October 25th through the Dorasan checkpoint located in Paju. Headed by Moon Woong, the 84-member North delegation received a warm welcome from its counterpart, including Gangwon-do Province Governor Choi Mun-sun.
역시 여기 밟아보니까 일단 좀 해나라고 우리가 한민족이라는 거 잘 아시죠?
The Ari Sports Cup, a football tournament for athletes under 15 years of age, began in Gyeonggi-do Province in 2014 with a goal to promote inter-Korean youth sports exchanges. The tournament celebrated its 5th edition this time, following the 4th edition held in Pyeongyang in August.
이번 대회 가장 큰 의미는 우리 4회 대회 때 남측 선수들이 평양에 올라갔지 않습니까? 이번에 답방 형식으로 북측 선수들이 남쪽에 내려왔어요. 그래서 상호 왕래 교류가 이제 정착됐다. 그런 측면에서 가장 큰 의미가 있고.
The event, which came immediately after the Pyeongyang Inter-Korean Summit, set an exemplary standard for future inter-Korean exchange projects.
지난 9월 19일에 평양 선언을 양 정상이 한 후에 첫 번째의 구체적인 성과물로서 우리 강원도에서 이 대회를 하게 된 것이 큰 의미가 있다고 생각하고 있습니다. 그리고 이렇게 성황리에 무사하게 잘 끝나게 된 것도 큰 성과라고 생각합니다.
8 teams from 6 countries, including the 2 Koreas, China, Vietnam, and Iran, took part in the tournament. North Korea's Yeomyung Sports Club defeated South Korea's Gangwon provincial team 2-1 in the semifinals, taking home 3rd place.
오늘 골은 제 개인의 결이 아니라 팀 동료들이 다 마음을 합치고 다 같이 도와준 덕분에 제가 여기서 또 기쁩니다.
North Korean player Seo Sung-il, who scored a winning goal during the second half of the game, already looks forward to playing a South Korean team again at the next tournament.
앞으로 계속 남북 선수들이 어가면서 경기하면 좋겠습니다.
The South's Hana Bank and the North's April 25th Sports Club took on each other in the finals. As a crowd cheered for both teams, the players gave their best in the end. The April 25th Sports Club celebrated a 2-0 win. The team has won the title all 5 times so far since the tournament began in 2014.
북한함이 같이 뻘도 같이 차면서 자주 이룬 경기 대회가 있었으면 좋겠습니다.
저희가 부족한 점이 있으니까 그래서 진 거고 또 이번을 계기로 더 팀에 가서 열심히 노력해서 만약에 다시 한번 붙게 된다면 그때 더 열심히 이기려고 준비할 것 같아요.
나중에 다시 남북이 그 같이 대표 선수가 되어 가지고 한 번 더 이렇게 경기를 할 수 있는 그런 기회가 됐으면 좋겠습니다.
The young athletes from both sides of the border shook hands and exchanged pleasantries after the game, a sight that touched the hearts of many.
실제로 보니까 우리랑 너무너무 닮아 있고 또 다르지 않은 모습들 그리고 같이 인사하고 손을 흔드는 모습을 보니까 너무 기쁘고 반갑고 막 그런 것 같아요.
남북한이 문화나 체육 같은 걸로 교류를 많이 해서 요즘 젊은이들이 이제 어른들이 못했던 거를 우리 이제 청소년들이라도 좀 평화 통일 같은 그런 발전 면에서도 도움이 될 것 같고요.
Inter-Korean youth football exchanges have continued for years, even when tensions were high on the Korean peninsula. The Arirang Sports Cup is said to have built the groundwork for peace between the 2 Koreas. The next tournament is expected to be held in North Korea in spring 2019.
아리 스포츠컵 대회가 결국은 다른 그 교류, 다른 문화나 또는 다른 그 교류에도 정기적인 행사로 정착될 수 있는 그런 이 좋은 계기를, 그 좋은 사례를 보여준 그런 이번 대회가 역할을 한다고 생각합니다.
South and North Korean youth football teams are also working together to field a joint team to compete under a single flag in an international tournament slated for next year in Europe.
이제 이런 대회가 발전하면서 함께 훈련하는 기회가 되면 거기서 단일 팀을 만들어서 여러 가지 월드컵이라든지 이런 대회에 나갈 수 있는 것도 가능하다고 생각합니다.
이번에 22번의 만남, 이젠 하나로. 그동안에 13년 동안에 우리는 22번을 만났어요, 남북은. 이제는 하나의 팀으로 내년에 단일팀을 구성해서 유럽 대회를 나갈 예정입니다.
Expectations are growing for the reunion of the young South and North Korean football players in the North Korean city of Wonsan next spring.
I think it's amazing that the 2 countries have been continuing youth football exchanges throughout the years, even when inter-Korean relations weren't exactly on the right track. And the 2 Koreas also announced after these sports talks that they will launch a joint bid to host the 2032 Summer Olympics. Do you think that will be possible?
Well, I think that's definitely possible. I mean, I think hosting the Olympics for North Korea is a huge incentive. I mean, North Korea, as I mentioned before, North Korea is trying to project the image that North Korea is a normal country, and then they are using sports as a way to shape up that image. So hosting the Olympics in 2032 will be like a coming out party for North Korea, and then be able to showcase the progress they've made in the country since Kim Jong-un became the leader of the country. So I think it's an incentive for North Korea to engage in such an initiative. And I think definitely South Korea is again assisting North Korea to come out from the cold, so to speak, and then reshape its image.
Well, Dr. Go, thank you once again for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing more progress in denuclearization talks between North Korea and the US so that it will add further momentum to these inter-Korean projects. And we'll wrap things up for now. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.